Good morning, Tottenham fans, and happy Tuesday morning to you all. And with it being the eve of Tottenham's first pre-season game against Hearts, I thought we would take a look at senior members of the Tottenham squad who finished out the campaign with many questions surrounding their suitability to handball. So today, we're going to look at 5 players who need to hit the ground running this pre-season and hit back at their critics. We're going to start with the one and only Rodrigo Bentancur, aka Lolo. Now, Lolo has had a bit of bad luck missing 11 months of football due to a number of injuries. If you take your mind back and remember, he ruptured his cruciate ligaments in February of 2023 under Antonio Conte, which required surgery and rehabilitation and kept him sidelined until October 2023, leaving him unavailable for the first few months of Ange Postecoglou's revolution at Tottenham. In November, Bentancur suffered yet another setback, 32 minutes into his first start, and returned to the starting lineup for Tottenham Hotspur. He was tackled by Matty Cash, which left him sidelined until January 2024. And on his return, I think we'll all agree as fans, he failed to reach the height or level of performances that he was producing before his injuries. And the setbacks just continue, guys. His latest one coming during the 1-0 defeat to Colombia in the Copa America semi-final. Bentancur went down with a problem and he was seen leaving the pitch in tears. And it remains to be seen whether it's going to have a knock-on effect into pre-season. Now, one thing is clear. The disruption over the last year and a half has taken its toll on Bentancur, and the frustration is building up and potentially starting to boil over, leading to a string of misdemeanors. In May, Bentancur furiously started kicking his seat repeatedly in the dugout after being substituted in the defeat against Manchester City, leading to Postecoglou having to have a private chat to Bentancur about his reactions. Bentancur then landed himself in hot water again with club captain's son, which he has since apologised for. Then again, recent images and videos coming out of the Copa America, Bentancur was seen hurling bottles into the stands and potentially faces a ban from international competition. Like I said, it remains to be seen whether Bentancur is set for another spell on the sidelines, but one thing I do know is that he does need Spurs fans to rally round him and show him the love and help him come out of this difficult period. And if Rodrigo Bentancur himself can channel all that built-up, pent-up frustration and anger into his game and let his football do the talking on the pitch, he could be set for one of his best seasons yet at Tottenham Hotspur. There is no question marks about Bentancur's ability to be able to play in the Ange Postecoglou system or style of play, but with the emergence of Papa Matar last season, the new arrivals of Lucas Bergvall, Archie Gray, the competition Bentancur faces for his spot in that midfield is at its most fiercest since he's arrived at Spurs, which leaves Bentancur under pressure to hit the ground running and perform this pre-season, and why he makes my list. The second player on my list is Dejan Kulusevski. Kulusevski arrived at Tottenham on loan in the winter transfer window of the 2022-23 season under Antonio Conte, and he did make an immediate impact when he first arrived, frequently playing down the right side as a right winger in Conte's 3-4-3 system, and it looked like we had finally solved our long outstanding issue on that wing. However, the following season, Kulusevski was unable to recapture that form, suffering a hamstring injury and also a setback in his recovery, which hindered the rest of his campaign because he would often come off the bench or start games due to injury crisis despite himself not being fully fit. Under Conte, Kulusevski produced 7 goals and 16 assists in 55 games, which led to Spurs activating the 30 million buy clause in the initial deal that was agreed when they took Kulusevski on loan from Juventus. Ange Postecoglou then arrived at Spurs, and many thought that Kulusevski would start producing what he showed in the first season. However, that did not occur. Kulusevski ended up struggling for large parts of the seasons, being deployed in many various roles, being used off the left, being used off the right, being used as a central attacking midfielder and also a striker, which led to 2 questions. The first is around his suitability to Ange Postecoglou's system. Does he have the fundamentals to be able to play such a high-octane brand of football? Kulusevski makes things very complicated when it comes to what Ange Postecoglou prefers in his wingers. It's clear Ange Postecoglou prefers his wingers to have devastating pace and be able to beat their man one-on-one, as seen by the acquisitions of Brennan Johnson and Timo Werner. And they simply are not traits that you can associate with Kulusevski. He lacks speed and does not possess the devastating ability when taking on his man and cutting inside the way that Son does off the left-hand side. However, I do make the argument that all of our wingers' output to some degree would have been affected by the sale of Harry Kane and a lack of a constant presence up front since his departure. And the second question is, Does Ange Postecoglou know Kulusevski's best position within his system? Judging by the amount of positions he played last season, I think Ange is still trying to work that out personally. Kulusevski's two best performances came when he played up front. First against Luton earlier in the season when Bissouma got sent off. Kulusevski was absolutely sensational. His ability to be able to hold up the ball and travel with the ball on his own ended up releasing pressure on that defence and midfield and allowed them time to get organised. And the second against Sheffield United on the last game of the season where he bagged 2 goals. With Kulusevski's style of play and his body frame, personally, I think he'd be more suited to playing as a striker in Ange Postecoglou's system. Now, there is no denying that Kulusevski gives his all every single game, working up and down that pitch, and that he's somewhat competent in various positions right across the Ange system. However, Kulusevski's performances last season has left the Spurs fanbase split over his ability and his suitability to the Ange system. And there is a legitimate concern that Kulusevski could become a jack of all trades and a master of none. And at the ripe age of 22, 23, he really needs to be able to start nailing down. And for me, this is why I think Kulusevski really has to hit the preseason ground running to finally try and nail down a position across Ange's system. Third player on my list is Prue, aka Richarlison. Now, it's no secret that since Richarlison has arrived, he's found it very difficult at Tottenham Hotspur. He initially came in behind Harry Kane and only managed 3 goals and 4 assists across 35 games, which done very little to ease fans' concerns who had doubts about his ability and the price tag that Spurs paid to get him in the door. During his first season, he also had a massive bust-up with Antonio Conte in front of the whole dressing room, which ended up leading to a breakdown in their relationship. So, will things get any better the following season? Well, the following season, he was granted a new lease of life. Not only did we bring in a new manager, but we also sold Harry Kane. Not only did we bring in a new manager, that his style of football should suit someone like Richarlison, but Harry Kane also left for Bayern Munich, which cleared the pathway for Richarlison to be the main man at Spurs and hit back at his critics. However, sometimes in life, things don't pan out the way you want them to. And Richarlison suffered injuries and mental health issues, which led to him missing most of last season's campaign when there was a real opportunity for him to lay down a marker. However, there was one bright spot of the season for Richarlison, where Richarlison went on a run of scoring 9 goals in 8 games between December and February. Overall, Richarlison ended up finishing the season with 12 goals and provided 4 assists across last season's campaign. However, many fans still have concerns about Richarlison's availability across the entirety of a whole campaign and still have plenty of reservation about the consistency in front of goals when the chances come his way. But despite speculation about Richarlison's future, linking him to a move to the Saudi Pro League or even as a make-weight to Newcastle for the acquisition of Isaac, Richarlison has made it pretty clear in an interview in his home country that he is staying in England. And reading between the lines, one would presume he means Tottenham Hotspur. And as Tottenham's only senior recognised striker, we really need Richarlison to have a more productive campaign. And simply hitting the ground running this pre-season would go a long way to alleviating Ange Postecoglou's and the fans' concerns about whether he's the right man to lead the line and spearhead Tottenham's trophy charge. Now, the 4th player on my list is Yves Bissouma. Bissouma did arrive at Tottenham with a huge reputation, but has failed to improve the first team the way many pundits and fans alike first thought he would. Under 2 different managers now, Antonio Conte and Ange Postecoglou. Conte didn't trust Bissouma and gave an interview on the reasons why he refused to play him in that 2-man midfield, saying Bissouma had been struggling a bit with the tactical aspect. With the ball, he's really good, but defensively, he has to pay more attention. And that quote right there from Conte is probably the best way you can sum up Yves Bissouma's first campaign under Ange Postecoglou last year, despite Ange putting a lot more faith into him. Bissouma did get off to an absolute explosive start to the season, was instrumental in the first 7 games that we got off to under Ange Postecoglou. But Bissouma's season was halted due to a few self-inflicted sending-offs. One against Luton for diving in October, and many fans would argue he never came back the same since, and the other against Nottingham Forest for a reckless challenge. Not to mention the amount of occasions that Bissouma got caught not tracking a run into her box, which eventually led to costing us goals, which ultimately cost us points on the football pitch. All that, combined with how easy it is to play through Tottenham's midfield, most teams only take one pass and they're straight in on our goal, has led to many fans and pundits alike saying that the club need to sign another defensive midfielder this summer if Spurs are to close the gap on the top three next season, and use Rodri at Man City and Declan Rice at Arsenal as their example. Now, for me, there is absolutely no doubt about Bissouma. He is a talented player, provides many attributes you want in a DM. He can dictate the tempo of the game, he's robust, he's combative, and he can take players on in tight areas. However, he lacks the two fundamentals that Ange requires in his two defensive midfielders. One, with the very attacking style and philosophy that Ange Postecoglou brings, he requires his defensive midfielder to be able to be defensive-minded and look to screen that backline at all costs. Two, with having fast-paced wingers, ideally you'd like Bissouma to have a lot more of an expansive passing range than what he shows, to be able to release them in behind a lot earlier than what we were able to last season. And one of the differences that can take Tottenham to that next level to be able to challenge the likes of Arsenal and Man City and go from a team being pretty to watch to a team that's able to get over the line and go and challenge for trophies is a real holding defensive midfielder. Is there any coincidence that where N'Golo Kante has been over the last few years, they go and win titles purely because of how good he screens that back line? You look at Man City, they have Rodri. Is there any coincidence that they're able to dominate the Premier League the way they are? Arsenal, as soon as they signed Declan Rice, propelled themselves into title challengers. So in modern day football, with all this attacking philosophy, more now than ever before, it is vital you have a defensive midfielder with those two attributes. Now, last season, Ange Postecoglou showed a lot of faith in Bissouma. I would argue Ange's hand was forced with the injury crisis that we ended up incurring over the course of the season. However, this season, there's a lot more competition, with Bentancur hopefully returning back to full fitness, the arrivals of Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall. There's a lot more competitions for Bissouma's place. And as we've seen at times this season, Ange Postecoglou is not afraid to haul Bissouma off at halftime or drop him if he is not performing. And with the constant speculation linking Spurs to a centre midfielder all summer long, Bissouma simply has to deliver this preseason if he is to convince Ange Postecoglou he is the guy that can do the job and deliver on the promise that he arrived here from Brighton with. And that brings me on to the last player of my list, and that is James Maddison. This one's a very simple one, really. He made an immediate impact after joining. 8 goals in his first 9 league appearances. Ange Postecoglou's tenure got off to an absolute flyer. Maddison then suffered ankle ligament damage in November, ruling him out for 3 months, and he never recovered the same form. And when he returned, his goal involvements and impact on games simply were non-existent, only scoring 1 goal in his final 17 matches, which ultimately led to James Maddison missing out on England's 2024 Euro squad. It's also worth noting, James Maddison was brought in here to be able to provide the creativity and the passing range that was left void when we chose to sell Harry Kane to Bayern Munich. And even when James Maddison was at his best, to be brutally honest, I don't think he got anywhere near that level, and really has to up his game if he wants to become that sort of player with that sort of reputation and get himself back into the thinking for the World Cup, which is right around the corner after the Euros finish. Last season, Ange also appeared to be losing faith in Maddison towards the end of the season, dropping him on a number of occasions from the starting lineup, but also regularly over the course of the season, substituting. And with Tottenham Hotspur constantly being linked with a move for Eberechi Eze this summer, and the emergence of some young superstars in the academy, the likes of Mikey Moore and Jamie Donnelly, also the arrival of Lucas Bergvall, there's a lot more competition and pressure for James Maddison's position heading into this season, leaving James Maddison's position under threat. For me, James Maddison has to have a massive preseason to earn the trust of Postecoglou again heading into this season, also get the fans back on his side, and also try and get himself back into that England squad and in the reckoning for the World Cup in 2 years' time. So guys, as always, please give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Is there any players that I'm being a bit harsh on? Is there any players that you think I've missed that should be in this video, and give me your reasons why? Guys, smash the like button. I'll see you back here later on for a live show. As always, come on you Spurs. In the big hands we trust. We never stop.